Drago,
What's up, baby?
episode 34.
Let's go.
Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson, greatest player of all time to not be in the Hall of Fame.
Bo Jackson,
Let's
right? And
go.
my
Wow.
college baseball number. So I'm super excited. We have a mutual friend, a homie, a brother in addiction, a brother in the mortgage world, a brother in the coaching world. So this is
Yeah.
super exciting, right?
Hell
You
yeah.
got your Vegas Raiders ready to go and your Angels. Are you going to get a new hat when the A's move to Vegas?
Maybe. It depends. I don't know if I look good in green.
You don't look good in
I
green.
mean, to be fair, I mean, I got a, if you look right there, I mean, I got a Jose Canseco autographed helmet.
I
So,
know you shared your whole Drago and I, Blane, have been sharing like childhood baseball cards back and forth. And I'm getting, there's always the addict within you. So now my new addiction is there's these really expensive baseball card
uh,
called Mosaic. They're like $500 for a
yeah,
box.
yeah.
My wife was like, "You spent what on baseball cards? And you're
I'm glad
complaining
my
about my lashes getting done?"
absolutely the propulsion goes in lots of directions. That's for sure.
So I'm super excited to have somebody I know intimately. We coached together, and I got the pleasure of leading him for 6 months. I knew some of his story, but as Drago and I have gotten transparent about our lives. I've found it attracts more people to us that either were transparent, I just didn't know it, or are headed down that journey with us. So I think it's super impactful that you'll be on today. And this is my boy, Blane Stewart. So all three of us, we said before we got on, hey, we're all former addicts, right? We're all a little bit crazy and compulsive, and we're all in the mortgage business. So you got three salesmen on today that changed their lives through recovery, through doing great things in the mortgage world. And Blane, what part of Third Chance is about is, hey, you can hit rock bottom and still do great things. And I know Drago has done great things and turned around his life, and I definitely know from getting to coach you for 6 months that you have done the same. So just tell a little bit about your story and your rock bottom, and tell us about your journey.
Sure. I'm grateful to be with you guys as being great friends. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, bro.
Um,
Appreciate you
yeah,
coming
my
on.
my story is not that much different than a lot of people who have addiction issues or underlying obsessive compulsive issues. Is like a young guy, I always felt kind of like really out of place. I felt super self-conscious. Like even as a kid, I would go, "Hey, Dad," and I would repeat what I said. I don't know why, but I think it was just the energy at my household was very quiet. Like my mom smoked cigarettes, my dad was always drunk all the time. I didn't really have any guidance as a kid. I didn't really know what was going on because my parents were probably at really bad energy with each other. But
Mm.
I was just picking it up as a kid. And
Interesting.
then I went to the most traumatic thing is when I left the safety of home, I had to get on a school bus. A school bus was like, you talk about traumatic, like going on a school bus, going from watching Days of Our Lives with my mom and having to go on a school bus with a bunch of kids. And my I never knew what school was about. So as soon as I got into the school setting, I was like, it was starting that trauma that I didn't really understand as a young guy. I started really not understanding and wondering, like, why am I here with all these people, and why do people take naps at school, and why do teachers try to make me do this stuff I don't understand? And so yeah, just school was kind of traumatic for me. And now that I've been in recovery, because I my clean date is 5/7/6. So I've been clean. I'm a 50/50 guy right now. I'm 18 years clean, 18 years using. I started using when I was 12 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
What did you
I
start using with?
Um, I I have an older brother who was really heavy into the liquid drugs. So when I was at a at 12 years old, I started drinking with my brother and his friends just to be cool.
Yeah.
I was
Like it was like a social setting, right? That was just what you did coming up in a social setting.
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
In a social setting, like just to so you have an older brother, you were like wanting to be cool and hang out with the older brother, so you're doing what he was doing.
Yeah, so like we my parents got divorced when I was 10. We moved from a big 100-acre farm where I could be imaginary and was experiencing that traumatic school I was talking about. To we They got divorced. My dad drank all the assets away. We moved to a two-bedroom ghetto apartment building.
Whoa.
So I'm watching the first day we lived in this apartment building. My brother gets smacked open hand across his face because he threw some kid's bike in the dumpster that was bullying somebody because that was the right thing. And I watched my brother get smacked in the face the first day coming from the safety of a farm. So that kind of paints the picture. And so my brother loved to drink and stuff because he had lots of problems like a lot of us do. Because I don't think a lot of the, traumatic upbringing in life that a lot of us have is that different from anybody's one story. It's like inadequacy, fears, because they always say with addiction, like self-centered fear is what caused all of us to do a lot of our stuff.
Yeah.
And like my self-centered fear started because like when I drank that liquid drug, I used to be like a semi, sponsored skateboarder. I've skated with like Tony Hawk and stuff when I was a kid. And I drank that liquid drug and I couldn't get the rail slide across the whole parking block until I tried that liquid drug, and it just got me comfortable and relaxed. And I felt indestructible.
At 12 years old.
Yeah.
Your brother was how old?
My brother's 4 years older, about 3.5 years older than me.
Yeah. So
and
the normal age most of us started drinking or experimenting he was in, right? You were taken away from where you could have a childhood into a small home. You're trying to find your way in and fit in, right? And that was naturally through your brother.
Yeah, and I think as I've been clean and I've worked the steps, because I'm still active in recovery. I still go to meetings, I work steps, I sponsor people today, and but yeah, like so back then it was just like trying to fit in and be cool, and it made me relax. And I think naturally I was just anxious because I didn't understand a lot of stuff. I didn't have like my mom was making 13 grand raising 3 kids. She was never there. She's hustling. She would get in relationships too, just to economically make things work. She'd have a man in the life that was just, there was men that would come in and leave my life. So I had a lot of like, I lost my farm. I would get a dog and a pool table and get established at one place, then they break up and I'd lose my dog and my pool table.
Whoa.
So like for me at a young age, I just started realizing that, it wasn't a safe world. That's kind of the image what things were saying to me, and drugs and alcohol kind of masked my feelings inside.
Yeah, I feel like I had the same when I started using opioids. I go back to, I just like to do it, but really I was just scared of the world.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know who I was, because see, the neat part about it is like at 12 years old, this sounds terrible because I have kids and my kids are like angels compared to how I was, right? Like at 12 years old, I used for the first time and literally had my first sexual encounter at 12 years old. And I think about it, I wasn't even a man down there, you know what I mean? And wow. I'm doing things that are making me feel worse and worse inside. But now as I know like what addiction's about, I kind of do the opposite of what's good for me. Yeah. I'm kind of wired just to wreck the show.
So this all started at 12. How did this evolve? How did other things come in? Like Sure. Talk a little bit maybe between like 12 and 18, what path this led you down.
Absolutely. Well, I learned around, 12. I was still a pretty good kid. I was just getting into the liquid drugs and some of the smokable things between probably 12 and 15. And I really had big inadequacies. I started like getting inadequacies about being poor and not having a father. That really is a lot of my story, is like I made a lot of identity about how I lied to other kids why my dad was never there. Okay. So I learned how to mask. And if I needed to get the stuff, I knew how to go with one group of kids to get this. I knew how to be with the other kids for this. I really started learning how to be kind of a chameleon to get my stuff. And then I learned at about a pretty young age, I was pretty good at hustling, like to mow grass and do stuff and get extra money. But then I realized that I thought there was an easier way to get money. And I got really pretty good at like doing sneaky things and making a lot of energy, through networking and stuff as a young person. So at 16 years old, I got hooked up with this lady and I got pretty big into trafficking drugs. And it was just a weird story, and I got good at it. And I was in a little small town, and I was a white kid that had a truck, a motorcycle, and a 1968 Porsche as a 16-year-old. And I lived in my own townhouse, if you're tracking.
Yeah.
So I was hustling, and my mom was too poor. She's never there. Nobody was there. From 16 till 17, when I graduated high school, I lived in a townhouse by myself. So you can imagine what that would look like with an out of control, adrenaline-loving person with lots of energy at a small town. So all my friends started to get raided that I was messing with. And so I realized that I needed to go somewhere and do it better. And that was called college.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, wow. It wasn't a nice story. Like I went there and I went really underground, and that's when I started going dark, dark, dark. Like meaning like I realized that I was not safe because all those people in my town started getting raided, and they started to try to entrap me. And they called me, and I was like, I just told them, I don't even know who you are. Why are you calling me?
Wow.
And I just let it all go. And then I went to the next place because I couldn't get rid of the addiction of hustle and money and feeling better, because drugs and money make you feel like people like you and you're needed, and it's filling that need of inadequacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I just went off into college, and I just hooked up with the wrong people that kind of threw fire on it. And a few years later, fast forward, someone had a gun to my stomach. I said, hey, listen, dude, just let me walk out of here. I'm never coming back. And like at that point, I made a decision, but I still couldn't get out of it. You know, like I still was addicted to the hustle and the money and the attention. And
why did the gun get pointed at you? Talk through that story a little bit more.
I went to collect some energy from somebody, and the guy was on a PCP, and he thought there was too much seeds in this shipment of stuff. And he was just high, and he had an opinion, and he decided that it was a good idea to put a gun to my stomach and tell me that he was really disappointed with everything. And I said, hey, I'm backing out. And that was one of the first decisions I had made in my life, that I just needed to get away from it.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, but it didn't stop the animal.
Yeah. So how did the animal keep going?
Well, from about that young age, it was a weird series of miracles. Like I think for a lot of us, once we get clean, the energy changes, and we realize how lucky we've been just to be alive today and talk to you guys on this podcast.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. Like I always jokingly think my life's like a motorcycle on ice with God holding the back tire.
That's a good one.
Yep. So basically what it looked like is I went off to college. We got to doing this hustling. I had a friend of mine go out to Arizona, where we decided we involved in this process to get what we needed at half the price, and things got even heavier in the profiteering side of life. And so basically he got raided. I lost almost all my money. Still didn't stop everything. And then basically what happened was I had to go after college. I went to West Virginia to do a whitewater rafting intern, because I'm an adrenaline junkie, always have been, always will be. And I went there, and the people that I had hooked up with, because I had lost all my money and kind of lost my power, and I went off to West Virginia, all the people that I was doing that with ended up on the front page of the Washington Post. There was Mexican kingpin, my friends that I was in with, and then all of them went to prison for, some of them, like two of my best friends. One is dead from opioid overdose, and the other one is life in prison since he was 19. Those are my two best friends that I grew up with.
Wow. Why was he in for life? What did he do?
He got caught distributing crack cocaine when we were young, and then he got out and he did something violent against a family member and got life in prison.
You were hanging out with some bad dudes and some bad seeds.
Well, I don't think it's that different. I think when you're addicted to drugs, it's a spiritual condition, guys. Like, we know it's not about the drugs. It's about this big black hole that's inside of us that we've kind of exported our personalities because we felt like we weren't good enough on the inside. So like the one thing I can share with any business person that's watching this, there's a lot of us that are masking our inferiority complex with stuff on the outside. Like you see guys with mansions, cars, Ferraris. I mean, I like my big house and stuff, don't get me wrong, but I just find that like what being clean and working the steps has done, opposed to that bad life. Cause I was on a daily doing lifetime felonious acts on the daily, cause I had no internals. No self-worth. And the cool part is, like, from working the steps and being clean and staying active in the recovery world, it's taught me that, my assets and defects are back to back with each other. And if I don't stay involved with recovery and learn to do the right thing, I'm naturally going to do the wrong thing.
Yeah, I think that's why we gravitate towards doing this, because this builds our cup up. You know what I'm saying? At what point? You end up getting clean. And then you get into recovery. Did you just like walk into a meeting? Where you did somebody say, "Hey, come with me"?
I love the way you put that. So I always admire people that come in and say like, "Oh, I have a drug problem," and they poured hot tea on themselves and said, "Oh, maybe I should go to NA or AA."
Yeah.
Most people that I meet almost are like head-on tractor trailer wrecks. And my story was like this: at 25, at 24, I got pregnant. Life changed completely. I needed to become a father and stop trying to be bad, which it didn't work too good. I still got sneaky and bad in my story. But from 25 to 30, everything had stopped working, guys. The drugs didn't work. You know, I was empty inside. I had tons of stuff on the outside. I had like $2.5 million worth of rental properties at 25 years old. I had business on the outside to look good. I was 200 grand upside down. I was broke, you know?
Yeah.
And, but from 25 to 30, all the drugs and stuff had stopped working. The only thing that was left was anger. And it wasn't working. At 30 years old is when I got clean. I owned a mortgage company from the time I was 27. So I've been in the business dirty and clean. Okay. So basically what happened was at 30 years old, there was a party we had. And back then, if you worked at my company and you weren't using, you were fired. Like, cause you know how when we're using, we want to be around people that are using.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. So then basically I had this event. Someone at the event kind of told me they had taken some money away from me because I used to take down a lot of buildings and stuff. I used to love to take down churches and barns and stuff for the wood. And basically this guy kind of told me right before I left that I was going to be kind of shorted about 40 grand because this building was worth some money. And like back then I was so weak and so empty, I didn't take it out on him. I got in my vehicle and went crazy ballistic on my wife, which was a common trend back then on me. And my kids were in the back seat. I was belligerent. Like, I mean, I looked in the mirror right before I left this place and I had white dots all up my face. And I'd been partying all day long and I had alcohol and drug poisoning. And I was trying to get out of there. And this guy told me right before I left and I got enraged. I actually, and I don't mind saying this because I think anybody watching this, there's people that do crazy stuff and we don't talk about it. And like, I'll tell you, I got so enraged because I was out of control. We drove 45 minutes. I yelled in front of my kids. I pulled my wife out of a moving vehicle with my kids in the car so I could go party and get out of there. And that was the blessing that got me into recovery because I didn't, like some people might have choices. I had literally, for the first time in my life, got put in the system. Mm-hmm. I had a SWAT team of police that came chasing a grown 30-year-old man through the woods that had to come get me. And at 30 years old, up on top of a playground with rain coming down 100 degrees and there's 10 cops around. They didn't find me. And that was the thing that blessed my life. Like when I made such terrible decisions, that's what gave me the chance to be with you guys today.
Isn't that funny, Drago, how we talk about your rock bottom usually becomes your best moment? Like my attempted suicide and the debt I accumulated and the company I lost, like why it was horrible you're going through it. I just want to reaffirm what Blane just said. It is so true. You can bounce off that rock bottom and go do great things. I mean, I know Blane personally. I know how phenomenal his daughters are. I know how much of a loving wife he has and how great of a father is. So you can go from that. If you want to change and you want to work a program and you want to get help, you have to be willing to do it. No one can do it for you. And if you have a loved one that's going through something that I've gone through or Drago or what Blane's telling you, I'm here to tell you, you can't change them, right? You cannot change them. You think you can, but you can't. They won't change until they want to change, right? But for those that are watching and listening, if you want to change, the inspiration should still be, and I want you to hear this, is you can go from that story to having the life that I know Blane has, the house, the successful business, the wife, the amazing daughters that I know they are. Like you can have that turnaround. So talk a little bit about that turnaround, Blane. What has that been?
Absolutely.
So you started working a program, right?
Yeah. So the miracle started happening pretty much almost right when I stopped using and got, kind of not, I don't think I really got honest right away, but I had things where I couldn't see my family. And so I was basically staying at a guy's house. And what it was is he was going to the fellowship, the alcohol fellowship, and I was staying at his house. So he's like, why don't you come to this thing with me? And I went to these meetings and I really realized that there was more people out there that were like me, that I wasn't alone with my problems.
Yeah.
And so like when you're at meetings, for those who haven't maybe come to meetings yet, you'll notice that you'll say stuff like, yeah, I did these crazy things, and people are nodding like, yeah, me too. Because, there's really nothing that, when you have a spiritual devoid like I did, people are in danger when they're around me when I'm using. Like, because if you went across my path, it was dangerous for you, And from that bottom, I got at this guy's house. We got into meetings. I got into coaching. Just this guy was sending me all these things. I got into this other coaching thing, and I had to bail on a flip project. I had 40 grand upside down on a flip project I had on credit cards that I was going to do, but I had to keep my marriage together because I was so depressed I couldn't work or whatever. I had 25 grand in mortgages going out a month, and so I basically got into coaching. 6 months later, in this other coaching group, I had gone from like -40, paid it all back, and paid off like probably 50,000 more in debt. And I became kind of a poster child for this other coaching group called Buffini and Company. And it really changed my life. I learned how to work by referral. I started getting some self-esteem. My wife started to say, hey, I'm going to give you a chance. If you keep your track here, I'm not going to move me and the girls to the West Coast. And so that really is where it started bouncing back. And I that first year I made from like my best year using, I made 113. I made $264,000 that first year because I had some positive energy and I had some structures, and I started, because I think a lot of us have an untamed mind. That's why we use drugs, because we were always like restless and irritable and discontent, and the disease keeps our mind moving. So like when I started getting focus and some structure, it was wild. I was like channeling in the thing that used to blow me out,
Yeah, which is so interesting, because I feel the same way. Because like I'm like, when I'm in active addiction, I am a master manipulator. I'm figuring out how do I go get what I want, and who can I manipulate to get it. And then you learn, same with me. You learn how, oh man, I'm kind of good at this, and I can manipulate people to get what I want.
Yep.
Right. So like even coming into the fellowship or coming into coaching and having strong in people accountability that are doing what I want to do, I was like, oh, I'm just going to flip my mindset on being like super shady and trying to manipulate people to where I'll just use it into the positive. And it changed everything for me too.
Yeah, they always say your assets and defects are back to back. And I realized that all the things I did to manipulate weren't always bad. And if I used them to serve other people, which was weird, because like mine was like this weird river that kind of merged together, because I learned to be of service to others in recovery. And guess what? I work in a service industry.
Yeah.
And it went from like working, if you were clean and working at my company, you were fired, to all of a sudden I'm leading by example, showing people that not only is it okay to be clean and recover and go to recovery, but it's also cool to get therapy. And it's cool to, as my years in recovery, it's not just inside the room stuff, it's outside the room stuff too, which is kind of gave me a lot of like structure. Like, cause I used to just be like this, and now I'm like this.
Yeah.
And that's really the blessing. And I would say that, some of the things that Chad was saying about like the houses and the cars and the net worths and everything, the thing that all this gave me is peace. Like people always say, like, I'm the balance guy at my bank. They're always thinking I'm like the most nice, he's Mr. Balanced. No, what they don't know is that I have to keep myself in a tight lane of a structure. I need to go to 3 meetings a week. I need to do my step work, or nothing else works. I need to stay accountable to my boys and girls in recovery. And that's really where the big success for me has come. Like, I definitely, like you guys, have grown businesses that are just beyond my wildest dreams. I've gone from -200 to positive multiples and multiples of millions of dollars because I did the next right thing.
But recovery fills your cup. Serving other people that have an uncurable brain disease, right, is what?
Well, they always say the broader the base, the higher the point of freedom. Like for me, the spiritual freedom of helping another addict or alcoholic is really what my purpose is. It's not to be gangster rich. It's not to be this big mortgage guy. It's to be the best version of me as I help someone else that might have suffered like I did. Because nothing about my young story was good. It was almost all dark and painful, and I felt lonely. Now I've got tons of friends like you guys and other people that inspire me and push me and make the greatness come out. And I feel like I can never learn and grow enough now with recovery in my court that I'll ever hit the top of what I can be.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's hard for me to believe that you were such an angry guy, because you're such a nice guy. You know what I'm saying?
That's what they say. Almost everybody that knows me, if they had known me back then, it's wild. Like that's what recovery can offer to us. Only, like Chad was saying, when we become willing to give it a shot. That's really the big difference. Is like they always say, like balance guy and stuff. They don't know that I used to be just an off the chain wild felt terrible about myself. And most people are like, Mr. Positive Balance Guy. It's because recovery is, I'm practicing it in my life.
Amen. Yeah, it's all through structure, accountability, community, right? For me,
Yeah.
it's faith. I know that's the same for you, Blane. It's you got to have those things to go through such a hard time. But I love that all three of us have had these rock bottoms, and now we can go out and help those people that are going through what we went through, because there's no better person to teach them than the person that used to be them, because we've been in those shoes. Like I'm helping a buddy out today who's in a really bad financial hole. I'm maybe not the best, but I'm definitely one of the best, because I was there not too long ago. I was in that financial hole, and I remember the feelings, and I remember the other issues it gave me. So I'm the perfect person to help them with it. And that's the beautiful thing is once you can change yourself, then you can go help others change. And I'll tell you, we've all been successful financially. We've all turned around our lives and have great lives. There's no better feeling than helping someone else, especially when it was something that you went through personally. So talk a little bit about some of your rewards of sponsoring, working the program, things you've done and things you're proud of through helping others.
Sure. It shows up like in sponsorship. I think it's just, I currently sponsor 4 people right now, and I'd say 2 of them are active. Like, I think the one of like, because you'll find as you sponsor people, there's probably a few that just kind of never get really that willing. And sadly, they go away, But there's one of them right now that he's on fire. He's working the steps like crazy. He's surrendered. He's going to the meetings. He's making the calls. And he's got so much lighthearted freedom, guys. Like, that's the best reward I've gotten out of recovery. Is I used to, when I was young, I used to feel like people were pushing me from the back. Like, I always felt like I had to go do something. That was my disease feeling about the world. Like, my dad's bad, my mom's this, the school's this, the government's that. And now I have these moments where it's just like calm, loving freedom. And then when I sponsor people, they're reminding me of where I was or where I'm going. And when I see somebody that lights it up like that, it's just nothing better, like you're saying, Chad, to where your heart and your spirit just feel so good, because we remember those feelings of like laying in bed and feeling like we were never going to get out of that rat race. The rat race isn't the money race. I'm talking about like being stuck in active addiction where you don't see any way out of it. I love that. One of my guys who works for me, when he first came to me, this is a decade ago guy, and a lot of the people in my operation are taught underdog type people. We have kind of an underdog culture. We bring people in and they'll have some potential and we just light them up, and that's from recovery, Yeah. And one of my guys, he when he first worked with us 10 years ago, his car was getting repossessed. He had taken like a payday loan to get a car just to get the opportunity. He made a bad choice, used, his car was getting repoed. 10 years later, about maybe a month ago, he goes, hey man, he's took me to the side and he goes, hey, I just want to thank you. I'm a millionaire.
Let's go.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was like a proud brother, father moment. Cause this guy, he was trying to sell me a cell phone for $20,000 a year, from 20,000 to 800,000 bucks a year in a decade. Those kind of things really inspired me. And I love stuff like that, where you can take somebody and you can just see the path. Yeah. That's really rewarding to me.
Yeah. It's not just the 3 of us, for those listening, it's people that want to recover. Part of, my pain was I didn't think it was possible to get out of the debt. I thought this was my end. I tied so much of my self-worth and my value into how much money I made and how many loans I did and the status of my company, right? And it was empty. But you can go through those things and still turn it around and have a great life. You can hit that rock bottom and it just strengthens you if you can get through it. Truly, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I think Blane's living proof of that.
Well, one last thing I'll say on that, Chad, is it's funny because I still to this day, like everybody here, I really appreciate, I mean, clean is the center of all my opportunity. Like, everything upside for me is because I went through those bad problems and I did the work, But like, some of us are still in coaching and stuff. Like, a lot of those high pressure comparison type things can really be a hot button for our diseases, because comparison is not good for the disease of addiction. I tell you one thing, Chad, and I know you went through the pressure cooker and have been a coach for a long time. The last few years of my recovery, with coaching, I literally have been able to do the work and not really compare myself that much to the results. And that's a big deal for me, because I used to be empty and all I wanted was the dragons and to say I was hotshot. And it's really been a big milestone accomplished for me to be kind of like just showing up as Blane, who kind of knows who he is, where he wants to be in the mortgage industry. And that's 100% of the spiritual journey and recovery, not the mortgage business.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So funny. We just got off a call. Jay Fletch, who's one of my business partners and someone you would all know, he's asking us what our word for next year is. And mine is elevate, right? And it's because my theme is to celebrate others before I celebrate myself. That is what I'm obsessed about next year, is cheering louder for other people than I cheer for myself, right? And it's hard sometimes, right? But it's all transitions that we're going through. Man, you just I knew some of this story from being your friend, but I didn't know this level, and it is so true. Like,
yeah, dude, this is wild. This is totally wild. I wasn't expecting that.
seeing, I got to be honest. I'm like, when Drago was like, "Let's have Blane on," I was like, I don't really know what he's going to talk about. You know, Blane's my boy, but where's the deep dark secrets? He's like, he's got them. He'll share, and I don't even think he knew, but you've blown me away. That you are who you are now, and your personality, and I know how talented and beautiful and amazing your daughters are, and I know how much your wife means to you, and the marriage you guys have had, and I know how successful you've been in business. It's just what a tremendous story from where you started. So I think it's inspiring to everyone listening. Any final thoughts, Blane?
Yeah, I would say for anybody out there who might see this, who number one, just keep leaning in to get more honest, because the disease of addiction or alcoholism doesn't want us to say what our problems are. And a lot of us, even though we might get clean, we might go home and still be holding on to things that we're scared to let go of. I mean, if you get a chance to start getting honest, man, just really work on peeling the onion back, because there's such a piece available to us. And I think our egos can really get in the way of it. So I just really just advise anybody, because business is laid with egos, millionaires, and all that stuff. Listen, the freedom in our spirit is where it's at. And when you feel lighthearted, man, life is sweet.
Yeah, you know what they say in recovery: your ego is not your amigo, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
Hey,
So
I'm glad you two are my amigos.
Why? Hey, I appreciate you coming on, bro. I
Thank
just want to say thank you for the time. I was not expecting that wild story. That's so awesome. Like a dude that's always angry. Like, what? How's that even possible? But hey, to anybody that's out there listening, we do this because this fills up our cup. We're not doing this to try to get famous. We're doing this to help others and be of service to others. So if you're thinking about possibly getting into recovery, you want somebody to talk to, I say it every podcast, I would much rather take a phone call from you at 3 o'clock in the morning than have to go to your funeral. We are here. Both me and Chad put our personal mobile phones in the chat. We are literally always available. If you're watching this and share, we want to get this out to the masses, because I think the more that we get this out, the more people we can help. We have resources in place to help you. It's just a matter of, are you willing to do the work, and do you want to make the change?
Amen. And I could say, just, you don't have a lot of time. You think you might. You might want to kick it down the road. You might want to say tomorrow. And I know I can't change you before you want to change, but if you're on the cusp of changing, you don't have a lot of time. Somebody's getting buried right now that I knew for many, many years, who actually watched this podcast and asked for some help. And we had some conversations. And unfortunately, she lost her life to opioids. And they're burying her today. And I know she thought she had time. I knew she wanted to work on this. But we have the resources. If you DM us, we always include our cell phones to help you. And even if you just want to have a conversation, I know Blane would be willing to talk to you. Jeff and I are willing to talk. We are here to help. And if we don't know how to help you, we have the resources of people that do. So please reach out. I know the holiday season can be lonely and can be triggers for people. It brings back some trauma and some bad memories for me. If you're lonely, if you're fearful of that time, please reach out. And Drago's right. We'll talk to you anytime. We'll give all of our effort and help to you. We've changed many lives, and we want to change many more. So we appreciate you tuning in. Blane, you're amazing. Drago, love you,
guys.
buddy.
Thank you, dude.
This is a
Appreciate you
great
guys. Love you both.
episode. I love your story, Blane, and I know you changed some lives today. So thank you for being on and telling your story.
Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, boys.
Bye.